What's up guys, welcome back to another video, and today I'm bringing you part 5 of What If Ash Woke Up on Time. It seems that you guys really enjoy this series and I really enjoy writing it, so keep up the likes and I'll continue it. Anyways, without any further ado, let's get into the video. After Ash earns his 6th badge, the duo make it back to Ecruteak City where they meet up with Sakura. While there, they convince Sakura to start her own Pokemon journey with her Eevee. And after spending the day with Morty, Ash and Brock head off to Mahogany Town. On their way there, Ash enters the Extreme Pokemon race, but ends up in 2nd place behind Gary. After this, there isn't anything really important we have to cover, so we can just skip straight to Ash's battle with Pryce. Without Team Rocket around, Pryce never finds his Piloswine, and he fights Ash with only his Dewgong and Seal. For this gym battle, Ash only has to send out Bayleaf and then Cyndaquil to finish everything off. Ash actually earns his Glacier badge pretty quickly, making it 7 badges in total. Anyways, with the 7th badge in hand, Shelia suggests they go to Blackthorne City for the next gym battle. The road to Blackthorne City is also pretty uneventful, so let's just skip to the battle with Claire. Her first Pokemon is Kingdra, while Ash's first Pokemon is Noctowl, who gets defeated relatively quickly. He recalls Noctowl and sends out Primeape, who proves to be just as fast as the Kingdra. Both Pokemon put up a good fight as each Pokemon just tanks hits from one another. Primeape eventually takes the win when it lands a Seismic Toss, putting Kingdra down. However, it's exhausted from all the fighting. So when Claire sends out her Gyarados, it one-shots Primeape with a Dragon Breath. Seeing that Gyarados is our next Pokemon, Ash decides to send in Bayleaf, who starts out with a Razor Leaf. However, the leaves are burnt to a crisp when Gyarados launches a Hyper Beam. Bayleaf takes quite a bit of damage from the blast, but she tries a Vine Whip. However, it's countered by another Dragon Breath. This serves in taking out Bayleaf and costing Ash the match. Claire tells him that he's more than welcome to come back and challenge her again anytime. With this loss, Ash decides that he's gonna need to do some training, but he wants to switch out a Pokemon first. He decides to swap out Totodile for Snorlax, as Snorlax is pretty strong, so it should be able to take quite a bit of damage, and deal a lot of it. So after switching out his Pokemon, they find a nice spot near a river where they begin to train. That same day, when lunch is ready, a wild Wynaut steals food from Charmander and Cyndaquil. Those two chase after the Wynaut, and Ash and Brock also chase after them, as they want to see what's up. After seeing that it's just a wild Wynaut that's hungry, Brock says that the Wynaut can have their food. He'll just make more for Charmander and Cyndaquil. The following day, as Ash is training, Claire shows up, asking Ash to come along with her. There's someone who wants to meet him. Both Ash and Brock are very confused as they weren't really expecting anyone, but they agree to come along, and are taken to the Dragon's Den. As soon as Ash gets off a Dragonair, he is tackled to the floor by his Charizard. It's revealed that Lisa and Claire are good friends, and Lisa occasionally brings the Charizards from Charizard Valley here to train. Since Charizard's already here, Ash decides to use her in the rematch battle. Over the course of the next few days, Ash trains Primeape, Snorlax, Charizard, and the others for his rematch. I also want to point out that during these few days, Wynaut shows up again and just steals stuff from the group. Anyways, when the time comes, Ash has his rematch with Claire, and like the first time, they send out Kingdra and Primeape. This time around, Primeape has a bit of an easier time fighting Kingdra, and ultimately takes it out with a Mega Kick. When Gyarados comes out, Ash swaps out to Snorlax, so Primeape can rest a bit. Ash's Snorlax is able to tank most of the attacks that Gyarados dishes out. Unlike in the original, Snorlax actually takes out Gyarados. When Dragonair is sent out, it proves to be too fast for Snorlax. Snorlax is able to land one Ice Punch before it gets taken out. Ash then sends in Primeape, who is fast enough to keep up with Dragonair, however it's already too tired from its battle with Kingdra. So it doesn't take long for Primeape to fall. Thus, Ash has to send in Charizard to finish the fight, and this battle does get resolved faster than the one in canon. As not only is Charizard a bit stronger, but Snorlax and Primeape have landed hits on Dragonair. It all comes to a close when Charizard uses its Fire Fang to bring Dragonair crashing into the ground, and finishing it off with a Metal Claw. With that, Ash earns his 8th and final badge for the Johto League. Claire tells him that the Silver Conference will take place in 3 months in Silvertown, and she recommends that he register in New Barktown. Ash tells his Charizard to train as hard as possible, as he'll need her for the league as well. From here, Ash says goodbye to Charizard and decides to send back Primeape and Snorlax to Professor Oak's lab. He gets back in return Totodile, Noctowl, and that Pichu that he caught a while back, as he hasn't had the opportunity to travel with it yet, so might as well bring it along this time. So after that exchange, the duo heads off to New Barktown, and after fighting at an unofficial gym, Ash and Brock take a detour to Altamar, where the events of Pokemon heroes Latios and Latias take place. Most of this movie can play out the same, just replace Pikachu's role with Kabuto and Pichu, and we should pretty much be fine. A small change I will make is that when the giant resurrected Kabutox is chasing Ash, Kabuto decides to leap off of his head and fight it. Kabuto stares at Ash, signaling for him to leave, but Ash doesn't really understand. It's not until Kabuto starts throwing out absorbs at Ash that Ash understands that it wants him to leave. Ash is super hesitant, but he and Lapras leave, thus leaving Kabuto to face him by itself. It doesn't go well for our young Kabuto, as it pretty much gets its ass whooped. It still has a very difficult time fighting it, even when Brock's Crobat shows up to help him. So in order to protect Ash and his friends' lives, Kabuto forces itself to evolve into Kabutox. Having just learned Slash, and with the help of Crobat, they push the other Kabutox into the river before going to find Ash. They do catch up with Ash and Latias at the museum, and the rest of the movie can play out like normal. I will say once they do win, Kabutox gets really excited and forgets that it evolved and nearly cuts Ash in half. After the events of the movie, we get on to the Lapras episode, where Ash reunites with his Lapras. And at the end of that episode, Ash is tasked with bringing the Larvitar egg to Professor Elm. It's at this point Brock notices that the Wynaut from Blackthorne City has been following them this entire time. So because the Wynaut seems to have taken a liking to them, Brock catches it. From here, all the Larvitar episodes can play out more or less the same, just take out Team Rocket and you should be good. So after successfully leaving Larvitar back with its mother, they make their way to Silvertown, but make a quick pit stop at the Ho-Ho Shrine. They meet Harrison, a trainer from the Hoenn region, and AJ from Kanto. Both Ash and AJ are really glad to see each other, as it's been a while. Ash tells them everything that's happened since they last met, and then asks what he's been up to lately. AJ tells him that he's collected 10 badges from Kanto, and while waiting for the Indigo League to happen, he decided to come here and do this league. Shortly after this, they're informed about a Sneasel, Machop, and Machoke who are preventing people from getting anywhere near the Sacred Flame. Ash, AJ, and Harrison get into a triple battle with these three. Ash's Pichu takes on the Machop, AJ's Slanshrew takes on Machoke, and Harrison fights the Sneasel. They all win their respective fights, and Harrison catches the Sneasel. From here, let's skip straight forward to the Silver Conference. Ash and his 4 rivals blast through the screening rounds, qualifying them all for the Silver Conference. Later that night, Ash and Gary have their little nightly bonding session before we actually get into the actual conference. Once again, all 5 blast through the top 48 and make it into the top 16, where Ash has to battle Gary, while AJ battles Richie, and Harrison battles some random trainer. Ash gets himself psyched up for his battle with Gary and decides to make a few changes to his team. In the first battle, Gary sends out his Nidoqueen and Ash sends out his Heracross. Both Pokemon clash, with Nidoqueen using Mega Punch and Heracross going in with a takedown. After hitting each other for a bit, Nidoqueen unleashes a Hyper Beam just for Heracross to cut through it with a Mega Horn and knock Nidoqueen out. Gary then sends out his Magmar, who takes out Heracross with a Fire Blast. Ash is then forced to send out his Rhydon, who thanks to the type advantage is able to take down Magmar with a Drill Horn and Smackdown. When Gary sends out his third Pokemon, Scizor, Ash decides to swap out to Scyther. This battle is mainly a blur, as both Pokemon are so fast it just looks like red and green blurs moving around the field. This battle results in a double knockout when they each strike each other, and it does the anime thing where it takes a while for both of them to notice it and they both faint. For Gary's next Pokemon, he sends out Golem, and Ash sends out Kabutox. While Kabutox does struggle quite a bit, with an Aqua Jet and Absorb, he's able to take the win. Gary's second to last Pokemon is Arcanine, who holds its own against Kabutox. In the end, he ends up beating him with just a simple takedown. Ash's next Pokemon is Snorlax, and while Ash's Snorlax is fast, Gary's Arcanine is way faster. Arcanine even manages to get burning on Snorlax. However, with the last bit of energy that Snorlax has within him, he uses Hyper Beam to take out the Arcanine. However, due to the burning chipping away at his health and him already being kinda tired, Snorlax faints. Gary's final Pokemon is of course his Blastoise, and Ash's second to last Pokemon is Rhydon. Ash's Rhydon puts in quite the work trying to use all of its moves to dodge or deflect Hydro Pumps, Water Guns. However, ultimately one well-placed Hydro Pump takes out the Rock type, forcing Ash to send out his Charizard. Since Rhydon did do a bit of damage to Blastoise, Charizard has it a little bit easier this time, but for the most part, it can play out like normal. Up until the field is covered with steam. Ash's Charizard uses Fire Fang to bite onto Blastoise's arm and drag him into the air, before smacking it to the ground with a Metal Claw, winning the fight. After Ash's match is over, he finds out that Richie lost his battle against AJ. Later that night, Ash meets Gary privately by the lake, and the two finally become somewhat friends. The following day, Ash faces off against Harrison. They start off with Primeape and Kecleon. Primeape has a lot of trouble as it's never fought anything like Kecleon before. However, when Kecleon uses its tongue, Primeape catches it and reels it in. It then hits Kecleon with a Mega Punch, sending it flying, but using its tongue he yanks him back and hits him with another Mega Punch. Primeape does this over and over again, eventually causing Kecleon to get knocked out. Harrison is then forced to send out his Sneasel. Both Pokemon are very fast and strong, as they knock each other out with a Mega Kick and Metal Claw. Up next is Hypno versus Snorlax, which doesn't really change much, meaning that Snorlax wins. The next two fights stay the same as Snorlax takes out Steelix and Houndoom uses a counter to take out Snorlax. Ash's third Pokemon is Totodile, who puts up a decent fight, landing a couple of water guns, and even bites onto Houndoom's tail for a while. Unfortunately, it does eventually get taken out. Thanks to all that extra training Ash has done, Cyndaquil hangs in there for quite a while. Harrison's Houndoom, however, proves to be quite a bit stronger than Cyndaquil. When Houndoom lands a headbutt, it sends Cyndaquil to the floor. As Cyndaquil struggles to get up, it begins to glow white as Cyndaquil evolves into a cool lava. With an extra boost in power, and having learned Flame Wheel, it takes out Houndoom. This forces Harrison to send out his last Pokemon, Blaziken. While Quilava does do its best, it's no match for Blaziken's speed and power. Bayleaf is Ash's second to last Pokemon, and this largely stays the same way it did in canon, only Bayleaf holds its own a bit better this time, but ultimately gets taken out. This means the final battle comes down to a Charizard versus Blaziken battle. This battle lasts way longer than it did in the original, as Ash's Charizard is far stronger and faster than it was in the original. Ultimately, they clash with a Fire Punch and Metal Claw, sending them both flying into the walls of the arena. Both Pokemon struggle to get on their feet, while Harrison and Ash plead for their Pokemon to get up. And with the encouragement from Ash, Charizard gets up. Not only does Charizard give off a powerful roar, but its Blaze ability activates. Ash gets super psyched up that at first he doesn't notice two bright lights emanating from his pockets. When he finally does notice, he pulls out those two jewels he won at the sumo competition. Before he thinks about it any further, he remembers that he's in the middle of a match, and he orders Charizard to do a flamethrower. Blaziken, who had just barely gone up, retaliates with a flamethrower. Both flamethrowers clash for a little bit, but it doesn't take long for Ash's Charizard's flamethrower to overpower Blaziken's. This means Blaziken faints and Ash gets the win. The light from the stones disappear as soon as the fight ends. Now in the original timeline, this is where Ash's journey in the Johto League ended. However, as I just said, Ash is going to continue on to the top 4. Ash faces some random trainer while AJ faces off against some guy named John Dixon. Let's say both Ash and AJ are successful in their matches, meaning that both of them get to move on and face each other in the finals. The battle begins with AJ's Beedrill versus Ash's Heracross. While we all know that Ash's Heracross is pretty strong, AJ's Beedrill is no pushover, as it was shown that AJ puts his Pokemon through a bunch of intense training. Ultimately, the Beedrill takes out Heracross, forcing Ash to send out his Quilava, who uses a Flamethrower and Flame Wheel to take out the Beedrill. AJ's third Pokemon is Golduck, but as soon as Golduck comes out, Ash decides to swap out to Kabutox. While Kabutox proves to be faster, Golduck uses its Psychic to lift Kabutox up and toss it around. Slam it against the wall and against the floor. Kabutox does land a few attacks like Absorb and a few slashes that keep him in there a bit longer, but ultimately Golduck takes out Kabutox with a dynamic punch. Ash sends out his Bayleaf next, and through some sheer luck, she knocks out Golduck with a few Razor Leaves, Body Slams, and Vine Whips. AJ's third Pokemon is his one and only, Sandshrew, who manages to knock out Bayleaf, Quilava, and Totodile. When Ash's Charizard comes out, it takes a while to defeat Sandshrew, as all of Charizard's moves aren't exactly super effective against Sandshrew. But ultimately, Charizard does defeat the Sandshrew, and AJ sends in his fourth Pokemon, Butterfree. This fight doesn't take too long, but Butterfree still gives Charizard some troubles, as it does a really good job at dodging most of Charizard's flamethrowers. But when Charizard lands a Fire Fang, it allows Charizard to also throw out a Flamethrower. These two attacks are too much for Butterfree to handle, thus it gets defeated. AJ's fifth Pokemon is Tyranitar, and this Tyranitar is extremely powerful and tanky as fuck. Plus, Charizard's fire moves aren't really that effective against Tyranitar, meaning that she's mostly gonna have to rely on Metal Claw. Unfortunately for Ash, AJ quickly realizes that this is the case and makes sure to keep Charizard away with ranged attacks such as Dark Pulse and Hyper Beam. This battle goes on for quite a while as Charizard takes a lot of damage while Tyranitar only taking like less than half of what Charizard has taken. Eventually, Charizard goes in for a Metal Claw and Tyranitar waits until she's at point blank range and fires a Hyper Beam. Charizard, already being tired and hurt, is unable to take the full blast, meaning Charizard faints and loses the battle. This does in fact mean that AJ becomes the winner of the Silver Conference. Additionally, he gets to go on and challenge the Elite Four and the champion. For the sake of the story, I'ma say that AJ beats the Elite Four but loses to Lance. With the league over and done with, Ash tells Charizard that she can return to Charizard Valley. However, she refuses to do so. Ash is very confused as he doesn't understand why she doesn't want to go back, but Brock suggests that Charizard might want to travel with him again. Ash asks Charizard if it's the case, and she nods before setting Ash on fire. He hugs Charizard, saying that he's glad to have her back traveling with him again. From here, Ash reunites with his other friends who say what they're gonna do next. AJ and Harrison are going to compete in the Indigo League while Gary is going to become a Pokemon researcher. Richie says he's going to continue his dream of becoming a Pokemon master. And after this, they all split up and go their own different ways. Eventually, Ash and Brock have to go their own separate ways, as Ash needs to go back to Pallet Town while Brock wants to head home to Pewter City. Sometime after Ash gets home, he gets the idea of starting a new journey with Justice Charizard from Gary and going to the Hoenn region. So his mom gives him new clothes and a ticket to the Hoenn region, but before he leaves, Ash gives those jewels to Professor Oak so he can study them. After dropping off all his Pokemon except for Charizard, he is off to a new adventure. And that's where we're going to be leaving it off for today. So like I said in the intro, a lot of you guys enjoyed this What If, and I'm enjoying writing it. So I'm going to keep it going into Hoenn. And on a community poll not too long ago, I asked whether I should do the Battle Frontier as well. And most of you guys wanted me to do it, so the next part is actually going to be a little different on how I'm structuring it. So normally for the past 2 regions, I've been doing the first 6 gyms in one part, and then the next it's the last 2 gyms and then the league. So for Hoenn, I'm gonna do it a little different. The next part, which should be part 6, will cover the first 8 badges. And the video after that should cover the league and the battle frontier. So yeah, I hope you guys stick around for that. Remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.